Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude at BeyondMystic, and welcome to the show. Tonight's episode is entitled Time, Space, Continuum, where woo-woo meets the Bible. Brand new guest to the show tonight. You can find his work at gold2020forecast.com and also on YouTube at gold2020forecast. Let's give him a big, warm welcome to the show, Mr. Polny. Welcome to the Beyond Mystic audience.
Hi, Jean-Claude. Pleased to be here. Thank you for reaching out to me, and look forward to our chat today. Let's see where this thing goes.
Right. Well, I'm excited to have you on. I've wanted to talk to you for quite some time. And I think we had tried back in December, we wanted to do this three-way forecasting of 21, bringing in the remote viewers, the psychics, and the Bible cycles of time analysis into one show. But it was really hard to focus everybody around New Year's, and it didn't work out. So I'm glad that I've got you back on now. And of course, things are crazy around the world, and the audience here is always looking for a leg up and to have an edge maybe on trying to forecast what's coming around the corner for them so that they can take the proper decisions for themselves and for their families. I'm really excited to have you on. And folks, thank you so much for joining us on this live interactive show. We will be taking your questions and comments as we go. And if you have specific comments for Bo, maybe we'll try to tack that on later to the end. We have about an hour for the show this evening. So we're going to try to get through Bo's latest predictions, and we have a slideshow ready to go for you guys. Now, before we get into that, seeing as it is Bo's first time on the episode here, and I always ask my first-time guests the same question, let's get started with this. Bo, how did universe conspire to bring you to the work you're doing today?
Well, I believe I've been always called by God to do something bigger from what I was doing when I was younger. And as I grew older, many things that happened in the world. Probably one of the key things that happened for me personally when I was in practice, I used to be a doctor years ago, was when 9/11 happened. And, and then I read the story. It was in Nostradamus, and it talked about the two brothers in the city of York that will fall. And, you have to ask yourself the question, how does that happen unless someone knew something in advance? Because the details and the words were so specific that, prophetically, that was a prophetic word of what was going to happen in New York. And lo and behold, you saw what happened. I think it was in whatever that was in 2001 or whatever year that was. But so that kind of started me on my journey. And then I started looking at precious metals. And over the years, I was fortunate enough to kind of see how the precious metals follow cycles. And then biblically, I started to apply what I saw with the precious metals. And then I thinking, okay, well, biblically, when you study the Bible, it says that which has been will be again. There is nothing new under the sun. So, and then you study a lot of these people who are renowned psychic people like W.D. Gann, and he exactly quoted that as well too. There's nothing new under the sun. And W.D. Gann was a cycles analyst and probably one of the best analysts ever recorded. He had some incredible analysis. So then I started researching and looking into the Bible, and I started analyzing the time patterns within the Bible, because you have to understand in the Bible specifically gives detailed. When I say detailed, I mean detailed information on timelines. Some people say, well, the Bible, I know a lot of people have said this, the Bible's been written by so many people, who knows what's true. But you can write the Bible in 100 different languages, but the mathematics do not change. That is really important to consider, because it doesn't matter what language it's written on or who wrote it, the mathematics within the Bible have never changed. And so in the presentation today, I'm going to show you how God, the creator of everything, created everything, and including where we are present day in terms of time and what's going on, because all of what's happening has been written about thousands of years ago. It's real. That is what I've come to discover. So then when I take these patterns of precious metals, I overlay the patterns of precious metals on biblical timelines. Specifically, gold and silver follow what's in the Daniel timeline, which is a 1260-day timeline, which is 3.5 years. So, and then times 2 with 2 cycles, that creates 7. And if you study everything in math or biblically, 7 is like the holy mackerel number, where it can be broken down in so many different paths, but it always ends up at a 7 again. So it's really incredible how that number 7 ties into everything. And 7, you know, within the Bible is incredibly powerful. So then I came to find out, like an example, there was one cycle where I called the exact top. I think it was to within 1 or 2 days in the year 20, when silver went up to $49.
Right.
Okay, that cycle was, if you go backwards from $49 top, 1,260 days, you get to the exact prior top, to the exact mark. So I sold my silver years ago. I had some silver that I sold way out there to the exact day, just because I was thinking that was going to follow the cycle, and lo and behold, it did. So then the crazy part is, gold, when it topped out at $2,000 or at $1,980 or something like that back in was it 2015? Go back exactly 1,260 days, you get to the exact cycle high top, to the exact day. Not even off by a little bit, to the exact day. It did the exact same thing that silver did 4 months earlier. So how do these things happen unless they are mathematically ordained by God? And then you look at the number 360, right? Well, that's a circle. Well, in the Bible, 360 days is a biblical year, not 364, right? So there's so much math that overlays itself, but all of it, what I've basically come to realize is that cycles do nothing more than replay themselves at different price points. So that's why when I look at cycles now, I can cycle through a cycle, I can predict how long something might take, but I can't give you a precise price because it could explode higher or lower, but the cycle dates or date would not change. So it's really exciting to have these patterns. And if you go back, those who have my reports can go back and read back last year, 2020, the entry point for cryptocurrencies was precisely April 1st. That was a key entry date, 2020. So it went a little lower, but that was still considered a key entry date based on the cycles. And look what's happened. Every single cryptocurrency has done nothing but gone up since April 1st, 2020. Mm-hmm. And so what happened was, it was really fascinating, but gold and silver have been so manipulated over all these years that it just gets boring after a while. Because when gold and silver go up finally, and we're going to talk about that later today, okay? Right. But when gold and silver finally go up, the financial system, as you know it, as we know it, Jean-Claude, is finished.
Right.
Gold and silver are the antichrist to the paper monetary system. They are two polar opposites. Like you have a coin, you have heads and tails. Basically, you can consider that paper money and God's money. That's just the bottom line of how this whole world is set up. And so they are doing anything and everything. They've done that for generations to not let God's money go up in value, because if it did, their game's over. And how do they control the game? With what? Paper?
Contracts.
Contracts, right? How do you control humanity? With money. Mm-hmm. How do you win an election? With money, okay? And when you have unlimited resources, you get a predictable result, as we just saw.
Right.
Okay. So the point being is, so then back to my story itself. In a nutshell, because silver and gold were so boring, I still follow the patterns for years already still, but they've been boring. So years ago, my wife said, listen, and she got mad at me because she goes, the cryptocurrency is a new thing, you got to get involved in it. And I was fighting forever and that was when Bitcoin was $400, and then I finally looked at it, I think in 2017. Yeah. And then I realized that the patterns are quite similar to those of the precious metals.
That's interesting.
So then what I did was I overlaid all of my learnings and time patterns on cryptos, and wow, like Jean-Claude, the patterns, the timelines that we've had, talk about mind-boggling. It's really been incredible. There's been time, like I'm human. I don't get everything 100%, but man, we've had some calls on the cryptos, like this day, expect this to happen, and boom, on the market happen. Like we've had that happen numerous times. It's rather fascinating how the cycles replay themselves. That's why, so I've coined the phrase, life does nothing more than replay itself, but at different time, at different price points.
Right.
But the time patterns don't particularly change. So that's in a nutshell, how I got into cryptos, because my wife, said, listen, the new monetary system is going to be definitely involved in crypto, and I was fighting it forever because I'm a gold guy,
You and I had a lot
and we're stubborn, men are stubborn, and women open men's minds up a little bit.
Yeah, you and I are very similar in that way, because in 2008-9 too, I realized to what extent we were living in this Ponzi scheme. It really struck me at that time, and I started getting out of the system. And of course, I was very familiar with the adage, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. So for me, it was gold and silver. And everybody was talking to me about Bitcoin. I'm like, no, I didn't want to listen to it. And to me, it was about at the $500 mark where I started paying attention. I'm like, wait a second here. I really educated myself and realized, like you just said now, it is part of this new financial system. And so anyways, the rest is history. And I'm here today, and quite a ride it's been. So I wanted to bring this to the attention of the audience here. You've been doing quite a few interviews. People might have seen you already on Greg Hunter. That's where I usually see your interviews with him. And as you're just saying now, over this last year, some of your predictions were absolutely dead on, and you and Greg have gone through that. So I don't want to spend too much time going back to last year, but I want to start maybe the segment today starting here in April. So in your last report that I saw, you were talking about how April, and specifically the end of April here, the second half, was really a demarcation point, and for big changes coming. And it wouldn't be Beyond Mystic if I wouldn't bring a little bit of the woo into the conversation. So as we follow Cliff High as well, his linguistic forecasting data was also picking up last month, that starting on around April 14th, we would have this new emotional spike and new, basically, increasing timeline of desperation. If I zoom that in here for the audience, that first line up there is the desperation timeline, and that's connected to the death of the dollar. And also here, as things degrade here from April, May, and June, he was also seeing basically a de-evolving of the system, whether those were political, the whole narrative around the health situation around the planet, and also, of course, the death of the dollar, and all the ability of these governments to pay and manipulate the world around them. So we're looking at, from these predictive linguistics here, quite a bit of change that we're currently underway. So I'm very excited because I took a sneak peek at the presentation you sent me, the latest up-to-date version that you have. And of course, April is a big month for you as well. So maybe let's start there. Let me know here which page you want to start on, and we'll start diving into this report for the audience. And that PDF that I have, the link, can I share that in the chat here for the audience? Can they follow us along with that link?
Please. That's why I made it. Yes.
Okay, very good. So you let me know, Bo, which page you want me to start on here.
So let's start with what you just showed. Have a lot of respect for Cliff. The work he does is really fantastic. Let me ask you a question. Where does Cliff get his data? Okay. He's stated numerous times before, the reason he's able to get his data, and these are his words, maybe I might misquote him, but it was something along the lines of, because people what was the actual phrase? Because people can predict the future, or people or psychic. That's what it was. Because people are psychic.
Right.
So because people are psychic, he gets his linguistics from that.
Right.
Well, I would that's correct. Okay. Yes, there are psychics out there, a lot of which you got to be careful of, number one. And number two, where is the greatest psychics you'll ever find in your life? Prophets. Because that's the word of God. Okay, psychics speak to spirit, so you don't know which spirit who's speaking to you. So you really got to be careful. That's why I use discernment. So I listen to some of these psychics to see what they have to say, but I use discernment with everything they say, because I need to feel and know who's talking to that psychic. That's really important to know. Okay, because the spiritual realm is huge, and you don't know who's talking. Okay, so but prophets. God speaks directly to prophets, and they speak the word of God. So the point is, how does he get his words or his linguistics? From what we just talked about right there. Okay.
Right.
So has he been wrong in the things he's been saying? Absolutely not. Okay. He's picking up what's been written for thousands of years. And we're going to talk about this. So what is woo-woo? Woo-woo is, it's like if you look at a pie and you cut that pie up into many pieces. Okay. Or you look at a puzzle and you look at all the pieces of that puzzle. Okay. Spiritually, God made that puzzle 6,000 years ago, and woo-woo is just little pieces of the puzzle which people are trying to paste together and put together. And so you're seeing the pieces, but prophetically, God wrote the story 6,000 years ago, which we're living right now. So we're going to talk about this, and I want people to try to see it from a different perspective, because as much as you look at spiritually and woo-woo, it's great because most of it's real, but it's nothing but pieces of a grand puzzle, pieces of a grand picture that's been created years ago. And then the picture itself is based upon free will and choice. So we'll talk about that, but I hope that kind of gives you a preface as to, what where we're going with this. But then if we start at page 2, basically, let's kind of go through some of the pages a little quicker, and some will go slower on. The ones you want to go slower on, please stop me, Jean-Claude, and we can ask a few questions. But basically, sure. the premise is that the United States was founded under God. The Constitution itself, about a third of the words in that Constitution were out of the Bible. God had a covenant with the United States. And so the whole premise is to take down the United States. And the way you take it down is you destroy the Constitution. You think I'm wrong, Jean-Claude? What's going on right now? How many laws are the presidential orders are they signing? What are they all to do? Every single one, or most of them, are to do what? To destroy the Constitution. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so that takes it to the second slide, because what's coming is they're trying to push on what is called the Great Reset. The Great Reset is basically a push for what happened in Nazi Germany. Okay, they destroy everything, they can take control of everything, and you're nobody. So what they're trying to push the world away from is called the Great Awakening. Yeah. And the Great Awakening is the moment that God steps in. And this is really important to understand, because it's even written in the Bible. Ephesians 6:12. What does Ephesians 6:12 state? I'm going to read this to you. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against the rulers of darkness in high places. Right. So I know I've listened to a couple of your shows that you've done, and you have psychics and people on your show. This is the thing that people need to understand is, and they talk about aliens and all this stuff you guys talked about. Yes, there's aliens, and there's good aliens, and there's bad aliens. There's good spirits, there's bad spirits. There's all that out there. Okay. So, and it clearly states it. There are some of the spirits are called the principalities of darkness. Mm-hmm. And those are the ones that we're seeing do what they're doing right now. Right. That is what we see going on right now. So we scroll over to...
Just to bring this up to you, we brought this up last November. This was Archbishop Vigano's address during the election, and he was talking about the fact that the U.S. election and everything going around the world was in fact a spiritual war against the children of darkness. And so we tied that into the narrative here on this website and on this YouTube channel to try to explain to everybody all of these angles that are coming together, just as you're saying now. So it's all little bits and pieces that we're trying to bring in this puzzle. And this is why I wanted to bring you on, because you've done quite a job in bringing a lot of these data points together in your presentation, and hopefully the audience can get a little bit of clarity, because there's a lot of confusion going out there, and some of the audience are still very nervous about all of these changes. And with the information comes the empowerment. So this is why we're doing these types of shows, and I want to give the platform for the different points of view, right? We've got the religious part here where we have the woo-woo meeting the Bible. We have a lot of the woo-woo stuff also on the show. And we also have the traditional technical analysis, people who come on the show too in the precious metals area and also in the cryptocurrencies. So bringing all of that together, I think, is the secret sauce here to try to have a bigger better understanding of the transitory nature of our reality. So again, thank you so much, Bo, for being on the show. And folks, thank you so much for joining here for this interactive live show. While you're here, please do remember to go and share and subscribe to Goal 2020 here on YouTube. And you can find Bo's work at goal2020forecast.com. So Bo, let's keep going here with your presentation.
Well, that actually takes me directly, what you just said, to the next slide, because woo-woo itself is directly tied into the Bible. Woo-woo is in the Bible. What is probably the most important woo-woo that's ever been written?
The giants.
The giants.
Yeah.
Why are the giants so important? Because they tie into everything, including what's happening right now in the timeline, okay? The giants themselves, none of this is make-believe, okay? And those of you who follow Cliff, please listen to, I heard him say one time, a year ago or whatever it was, that, there are stories which he knows of people, and right here where I live in California, off the coast, Catalina Island, where they're literally years ago dumping him off into the ocean. Okay, so why are the giants such an important part of woo-woo? This is really important. Please listen, okay? The giants themselves, how does all of this start? It started with a war in heaven. Who had a daddy complex and wanted to be God? Mm-hmm. Lucifer, whose now his name is Satan. Who was cast out of heaven, like he fell to earth like lightning, okay? And who fell to earth with him? A third of the angels. None of this is make-believe. This all happened. These angels that fell to earth are become what's called the men of renown, as written in Genesis 6, the fallen ones. Okay? What the fallen ones did is the sons of God, which are the fallen ones, and the daughters of men. Mm-hmm. And it's written right in Genesis 6. And they came to pass when man began to multiply on face of the earth, and the daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that were fair, and they took them for their wives.
Right.
What ended up happening was you had the Nephilim. The Nephilim were a hybrid. What do you see going on in the world right now? Hybrid cars, hybrid everything. What is a hybrid? A hybrid is half something else. Everything in this world is about creating. Why does the fallen ones, why do they hate man so much? Why do they want to kill off humanity? Why? Because they can't stand the DNA that God created. So they're creating hybrids. Mm-hmm. Okay? So that is the whole point. They are trying, because if the giants are real, so back to the giant slide, if the giants are real, Jean-Claude, then it proves that Satan was thrown out of heaven with a third of the angels. It proves that we had giants on this earth, and it proves the Bible, the stories in the Bible are real. Mm-hmm. So they can't have you find giants. So what happened was these giants, so now it goes into the giants themselves, let me see what the next slide is. We scroll to the next slide here. So these giants now are dead. How did they die? Why was there the great flood? Because God had to destroy the giants because they were horrible. They were killing off men. They were eating them. They were doing anything and everything. It's even that you see happening with some of the kids right now. Okay, this is what the giants were doing. God had to destroy them, so He created the flood with Noah, and therefore we had the Noah's Ark built to destroy the Nephilim. The Nephilim were destroyed, but not their spirits. Their spirits have been lingering around this earth for generations, for thousands of years. Guess who those spirits have now acquired? Mm-hmm. Why don't you go look at Washington? Why don't you go look at Hollywood? Go look at page 6.
Mm-hmm. Hold on, folks. Just scroll up. Oh, right, I was there. Okay, go ahead.
It's bloodlines all around the world. And on top of the bloodlines, the Nephilim have infiltrated all these people. And then now all you're seeing is insanity. Am I wrong? Is it normal what's going on right now? Jean-Claude, we live in biblical times. So
Absolutely.
that takes me to the seventh slide, slide 7. We basically are in end times right now. Cliff titled this as year 0. He's correct, but it's also year 0 was written in the Bible 6,000 years ago. That God created a story 6,000 years ago. Daniel wrote the story 2,500 years ago, nearly 3,000 years ago. And the story itself talks about the seals of Revelation, like we talked about 7. So the first seal is opened by the Lamb of God. When that first seal opens, the world will never be the same. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? Is the world normal now? The world will never be the same. The coronavirus was the first seal. The second seal is when peace was taken from the earth. So we're getting to the 4 horsemen of Revelation. The second seal is when peace was taken from the earth. That was on Pentecost of last year, 2020. And I will reiterate this again. What happened in 2020 ends in 2021. Okay, so Pentecost was when the second seal was open, peace taken from the earth. Guess what weekend? The riots broke out, and they've not basically stopped since. Pentecost, end of May 31st, 2020. Okay, we're in the third seal right now. The third seal is the greatest financial event in human history. So why hasn't gold and silver taken off yet, Jean-Claude? Because gold and silver are God's money. Gold and silver are not going to go crazy until God says it's time. And the world and God's money is going to move according to God's time, not my time, not your time, and not anybody else's time. It's going to move according to God's time. So the third seal was opened with a crash of last year and actually oil going to 0. That was kind of the start of it. But technically, the world will not see the effects of the third seal, based on what my calculations are pointing to, until from April 20th, oil to going to 0, 2020, 370 days forward takes us to April 26, 2021, 2 weeks from now. Okay, so I'm just giving you the math calculations. Will something happen on that date? I have no idea, okay? But I can tell you the prior dates of the 40 days and 40 nights, it was a big moment. Second seal, we had Ginsburg die on 150 day, and 220 days takes us to April 26. Is something going to happen? I don't know. But it's a critically important cycle time date based on based on Noah's Ark cycle, because that's basically the timeline that I'm using right now for this event to go down. So, or whatever the event is or what it's going to happen. And then there's numerous overlaying cycles that are all piling in to something crazy, may happen the last week of April. Now, the other crazy and an interesting part is biblically, from the timelines that I've analyzed as well too, you'll know that I've talked about the 4-2-1 cycle. So it's a mathematics biblical cycle. It's 4,000 years of the Jews, 2,000 years of the Gentiles, and the 1,000 years of reign with Christ in the 1,000-year millennium. So that cycle itself has if you look at my prior interviews, it's actually precisely pointed to the prior 3 stock crashes. So there's a potential we're supposed to see another stock crash. I believe maybe I think it's June or July.
June or July?
Potentially. Now, maybe it could be May. I haven't looked at the stock cycle, to be honest with you, in the past 2 months now.
Okay.
But I still remember when I looked back at it a few months ago, I think it was pointing to potentially June being a huge mathematical time point. But forget even that. What month is this, Jean-Claude?
We're in April.
April. Yeah. What month of the year? It's the fourth month.
Yeah.
In 2 days, today's the 19th. What's in 2 days from now?
21.
21. So and biblically, the crash cycle played into the prior crashes, the 4-2-1 cycle tied into it. So could something start this week? Possibilities. Okay. So the possibility, between as early as this Tuesday, Wednesday, tomorrow into Wednesday, could be the start of things. Okay. Don't just giving you dates.
Right.
We'll see what happens, because not everything has to happen on these particular dates. But I'm telling you, the April 26th date is supposed to be important, and it could start. We could see something triggering as early as the 21st, and in Israel time that could be tomorrow afternoon or something. Who knows? I don't know,
Right.
but we'll see. And also you'll know that oil went to zero on 4/20/2020, so a year ago.
Right.
Would be tomorrow. Oil going to zero. So I don't know. Well, we will see. But all I can tell you is that we are living in really incredibly important biblical times. And all of these times were written about, the time cycles have been laid out for thousands of years. And so for people to think that this is just either random events, there's no such thing as a coincidence or random events when you talk the Bible.
Right.
It's just not possible. So go ahead.
Let me ask you too, how do you tie in through some of these cycles? Because you bring a lot of cycles into bear here when you do your forecast. What's happening now with Ukraine? Are we also getting into one of these war cycles? And is this why we're seeing all of this saber rattling all of a sudden here, again, here in April? What do you make of that? Have you been tracking this a little bit?
No, but do your homework, yourself and whoever's listening. Whenever there's been an event in relation to the dollar, what's the first thing you see go down?
How do you mean?
What event happens whenever someone tries to move away from the dollar?
Oh, yeah. It's an act of war. Yeah.
Correct. Okay. Yeah. So what did Russia just say, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're moving away from the dollar. My point being is that all of this is tying in. And so let's answer that question, Jean-Claude, in the presentation.
Okay.
Because it's actually covered. So let's go. So we're in. We talk about the seals. So the first seal, second seal, third seal is the monetary event, and then so we're at the third seal right now, and then the fourth seal is basically what's coming. So it's page 16. You haven't seen plague yet. The fourth seal is plague. If you think you've seen plague, no. You haven't seen plague yet. Okay, plague's coming. But the world has not seen plague yet. Okay, that's the fourth seal. Okay, so now we're going to get into 17. Now let's talk about cycles. Okay, this is my specialty. I don't talk events because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what God's plan is. Okay?
Just to go back on the plague thing here, there's quite a few reports that are troubling right now that let's just call it the cure, might be causing a lot more adverse effects than we thought, and that could be starting what you could describe as a plague here. No, I
don't think so. It's not too. It's too early yet. Too early.
Okay.
Yeah, because the plague is the fourth seal.
And what's
we haven't seen the third yet.
Okay.
Okay.
I see what you mean. Okay.
Right. So you first have to have the third seal, and then you're going to get the fourth seal.
Gotcha. Okay.
They're sequential. Okay. So now in terms of cycles, so Israel had 400 years of bondage. And at the end of 400 years of the first Passover, Moses showed up, freed Israel from bondage. Mayflower to last November is exactly 400 years. This April is the first Passover. Those who study the Bible, you will come to realize that there's a second Passover, or some actually call it the first Passover based on Enoch. If you do Enoch's calendar, April 25th, 26th. April 25th is the start of Passover. April 26th is the end of Passover based on Enoch's calculation. And that's based on the sun and the moon, based on the 360 days, biblical, versus man's time, or the sun's time of 364.25 days. You have to make an adjustment every so often. Right. And so that adjustment and biblically how it states it, when the full moon hit, that would take us, based on last year's full moon, would take us to this 26th of April being the end of Passover, as potentially based on Enoch, though true Passover. If that be the case, that means that this 26 would equate to the time that Pharaoh was destroyed. And we're not destroyed, but basically taken down, and he released Israel. So this is what we're coming into right now, these kind of incredible timelines. We've also got on page 18, we talk about the Revelation 12 sign, which took us to March. That actually marks the exact final bottom or low for gold. You can go back and check that. You'll see what it did. Page 21 takes us to the fact that, gold, now that the bottom is in, all we're waiting for is liftoff. Okay. This liftoff, as I talked about, is the third seal of Revelation.
Just before we go into that, you just mentioned the pharaohs here. What did you follow this golden mummy parade, the 22 mummies that they're bringing to this new museum in Cairo, and of course the timing here on Easter weekend? Is this tie in somehow to all of this timing and cycle as well?
Yeah, first time hearing about that, but who knows?
Right. This is a big event, and a lot of psychics are looking at this too as a closing of a big cycle. So this was in much of their surprise, this to them, and the cards, the tarot readers and all that, looked at this as a ritual from the good side. This was putting away or closing all of these old karmic loops of bondage, and those are the words that were coming out to basically putting these mummies to rest here together. Fascinating stuff. I can send you some more data on that, but it's funny that you just mentioned the pharaohs here and how maybe it connects with this timeline here too as well. Okay, keep going. Let me know
and that is interesting. It could definitely tie in with it, and just because what God did Pharaoh worship, right? The all-seeing eye, right, on the head, right? So that's Satan's eye. It's a satanic eye. That's what they've been following. God, when God looks at you, He looks at your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Evil tries to control your brain. So that's what's going on in this world, right? And so we're seeing basically this massive battle going on. And then so now we're getting into slide 21 of gold and silver. Well, that's God's money, okay? So you can't have God's money go up, because if God's money, gold and silver, are worth something, then the paper monetary isn't.
Right.
Get it? Okay. This is the third seal. It's the greatest financial event in human history. So when could it happen? Well, this has been written about the Bible for years already. Leviticus 25:9-10 is talks about the Nixon moment. Okay. This is going to page 22. In August of 71, what did Nixon do? He severed the link between gold and the dollar.
Yeah.
So what does that give the ability to do, Jean-Claude? If there's no link anymore, it's not attached, it becomes free floating, which means that you can basically do and make as much as you
print as much as you want, and deficit spending.
Add zeros, whatever you want to do. It's free floating. So that takes us to slide 23, and this talks about why this year is so important, because it's the year of jubilee. Okay, Leviticus 25:9, the year of jubilee started on September 19th, and it ends in August of 2021, this August. So the timeline is now getting squeezed. Okay, so we've had September, October, November, December, all these months go by, and now we're sitting in April, middle of, right? All we got is May, June, July, and August.
Mm-hmm.
4 months for chaos to go down. Because God is not going to lose this one. God is in control. God's going to take evil down. He's going to put the brakes on this of what's going on. He is not going to let this happen. This was a complete. You basically saw you saw who's controlling the world. You're seeing this insanity, this evil empire, and right. God is not going to stand for it. God is. There's no way that God the Father is going to let these people do what they're doing. It's an impossibility. It will not happen. I promise you it won't happen, because God is in control, and man just challenged God. That doesn't end well. And evil cannot overcome God's will. Right. And God's will is for nothing to go down for the United States, who it's founded under God. God has a covenant with the United States. And for these people to think that they can get away with this, no way. It is not going to happen. And boy, is it going to end bad for these people who are doing what they're doing right now. So we're in the 50th year. So we're the 50th year. If we're looking at the timelines, Leviticus 25:9-10 is the 10th day of the 7th month. So that equates to precisely April 23rd, slide 24.
Okay, let me go back. Oh yeah, I was at 21 already. All right, there you go.
Yeah, so at 24.
Yeah.
So will something happen on a day? Again, I don't know, but I'm telling you, I bought a shofar and I am blowing it to no end on the 23rd of April, because I'm telling you, we are days away from the movement of God's hand, potentially. Something big's supposed to go down or begin this month. All I know is that Epic's coming, whether it's the 26th, the 27th, whatever. I don't care, but I'm telling you, by the time we get into May, June, July, everything Cliff even has been talking about is going to start to happen.
Yeah, let me bring back.
It's just because the timelines are squeezing together. Okay, we only have May, June, July, and August. And I'm not making up these dates. These are based on what I just showed you on the 50-year cycle of Nixon.
Right. Wow, that's fascinating. And let's move into the Red Sea moment here on the
20th. So the Red Sea moment, basically, if we do the original Passover date would have been the April 4th, April 5th to get released. 20 days later is April 25th. So could that be it? Or if it's the 26th date, then you got to 26 days forward, and that'll take us into May. So something crazy could still go down in May. Okay. You know, maybe about the middle or so of May. Who knows? But I'm telling you, the Red Sea moment right now is tying into basically the loss of control of the financial system. It's the third seal. So we'll have to see how this plays out. But now this is the critical slide, because I was on, this is 26, and I don't want the glory for this one. I'm showing you how God showed me how the timelines work. Okay. Take it for what it is. But the glory in this goes to God the Father. Basically, these are his timelines. I'm just showing you the math. And I was on Greg Hunter's show, May 2020 last year. And I specifically said what started in 2020, where basically that will be the 20th of April 2020 was when would equate to the door closing on the ark. 40 days later takes us to Pentecost, May 31st. 150 days later takes us to Rosh Hashanah, death of Ginsburg. 220 days forward takes us to April 26, 2021. What's coming? I don't know. But I'm telling you this, and then it's April 26th, just to kind of go backwards, based on Noah. That was the day, April 26th. So 150 days was the maximum peak for the water. And before this, the water then from that on, the water started dropping. Okay. And then basically, if we take it 220 days forward, that was the day that Noah and his family stepped off the ark into a new world.
Right.
If you don't think stepping off an ark after a great flood is a new world, I don't know what would be. Okay. But that equates to me a new world. Okay. So God, through Lois Vogel Sharp and some of the prophets, has now described that. And I knew about this a couple of years ago, but he describes it as a new era in time.
Well, going back to this third seal and gold and silver shining as God's money, let me bring up a slide here from the folks at Crypto Viewing, Dick Algeier and company. They did this remote viewing almost a year ago or 2 years ago, and the session was called The Death of the Dollar. And what they came up with here, so let me just scroll that down a little bit. Emergency meeting, shock, dismay, disbelief, ruin, catastrophe. These are all hunched over congressmen. They're puking, they're crying, a sense of adjournment for the last time, transfer of power. These were all the words that were coming up here with the event of the death of the dollar. And I think it hasn't happened yet, and we're all looking for the times and the signals where this could potentially fit into our timeline here. And going by your presentation, it very much looks like we're a lot closer sooner than maybe later. What are your thoughts on this? Had you seen this before?
No, actually, I've never seen that. So thanks for showing. It's interesting, but basically, think of it this way: so Pharaoh chases all of Israel to the sea. They're pinned against the Red Sea. They're about to be killed by chariots and swords, and they're done. Yeah. Moses says, "Stand firm and watch the salvation of the Lord, for he will work for you today." Okay. He raises his staff. The Red Sea parts. He didn't know that was going to happen. The Red Sea parts. How long did it take Israel to cross the Red Sea? I have no idea, but probably no more than a day, maybe half a day, maybe 6 hours, whatever it was. I'm guessing probably no more than 4 to 10 hours. And all of a sudden, Pharaoh, his armies chase them, and God closes the Red Sea on his army, and they are no more. So if you think God needs months, you don't know my God.
Right. Right.
That's all I have to say about that. So that's the power that's coming. We're about to see one of the greatest moves of God in the history of this world, equivalent to like Red Sea, Noah's Ark. Like this is what's coming. And this is the crazy part. So this has been written about, Jean-Claude, for thousands of years, and everybody's now, they talk to, the psychics, and they're all getting little pieces of this, and they're all like, oh, I heard this, and I heard.
Yeah.
This story has been written for 6,000 years. I'm repeating that because this story was written from the beginning, so that you will know that God is God, the creator of all things.
Right.
Period. And I want to show you that as the slide continues, presentation continues. I'm just backtracking. So slide 30, if you want to scroll that quickly.
I'm already there. I was looking.
Yeah, so you're looking at a cup and handle formation. We're at 40-year monthly candlesticks. We're about to see, lift off, whether it's now, whether it's, I think this happens in April, May. We're about to see, basically in the next 4 months, that handle breaks and we got lift off. And it's going vertical, okay? Prophetically, Lois Vogel Sharp, these are her words from God. The word of God, gold goes off the charts. That means super high, okay? And silver becomes the item or the new item of economic security that opens a new door of luxury for those who have attained this precious metal. Take it for what it's worth. That's not a financial advice. I'm just telling you the words of the prophets on silver, okay? So that is what's coming. How it all ties in, I have no idea, but I'm telling you, slide 31 is going to be the greatest financial event in human history.
Just to tie in with that here too, the LBMA was admitting that they were weeks away here to severe silver shortages in the physical market. This from the LBMA. So this admission here was quite shocking to a lot of people following this, because of course, in the weeks prior to this, we saw, the Mint CEO of Australian Mint say, oh, no, don't worry, we're full of silver. And of course, everybody calls for silver and everybody's on allocation. So there's a problem brewing here. And of course, it's all pointing to the timelines you're showing here. So that's fascinating, Bo.
And again, so now this is another interesting point. Again, so back on to what Cliff had said this. I know he said this to somebody years ago. This was I think 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago. And what he had said was that when this event when something goes down, whatever it was,
right,
basically all the dealers shut down.
Yeah, no offer.
No, because who's going to want to sell it, right? Yeah. Because you don't know the real price. That's the problem. Is when you don't know the price, why would you sell something? So right. It's interesting how, so it just goes to show you that, pieces of the puzzle, the woo-woo, has been picking up biblical stuff that has been written for thousands of years.
Very interesting.
So, okay. So that takes us to our new era, page 33. So we're looking somewhere around the end of April, something biblical occurs, whether it's that date, another day. I'm just telling you something around the end of April into May. Something crazy is supposed to happen when we step into a new era. And so that, again, is where, all this fear and the hopelessness goes away. Now, the fear and the hopelessness goes away because that's the people who are experiencing it right now. But the other end of the coin, the people that have been doing this, the men who are demon possessed or possessed by the Nephilim spirits,
right?
The damage that what's going to come down to them is going to be horrendous, and that will be the picture that you just showed me that Dick Algar just did or did 2 years ago. Okay, right. So that is going to be representative of what happens to these people when God moves.
Wow.
Now this takes us to the page slide 35. This is so important for people to understand the truth, because the truth sets you free. Name me a psychic or a sayer or someone that has gone back that you can reference, that has a prophecy that stands greater than 2,500 years old. There isn't an entity that you can reference. The only one that has, and he gave all glory to God, was Daniel. 2,500 years ago, Nebuchadnezzar had a dream, and he stepped up to Nebuchadnezzar the next day when he's going to kill all the prophets and the soothsayers. He was going to kill them all. Daniel asked for one night to pray to God. The next day, he stepped up to Nebuchadnezzar and he gave him the prophecy that would describe the next 2,500 years. He gave him the prophecy. He described Babylon, which was Nebuchadnezzar. He described the chest, Persia. He described the thighs, Greece. He described the legs, Rome. He then described how they're going to try to bind the iron and the clay in the feet, which is basically the papacy and the United States. Okay. Mm-hmm. He described all of that. And not only that, he didn't even know the dream. Nebuchadnezzar never even offered the dream to anybody. He just said, if you are a prophet, or if you are sayers, tell me my dream. Is what he said, because he knew it was so profound, but he didn't know the details of it. And then at the end of it, and he goes, and then when he stated the entire dream to Nebuchadnezzar, he says, all glory goes to God, the creator of all things, so that you will know that God is God, the creator of all things. He created the story from the beginning with the end in mind already. So we are now at the stone. The stone is the rock of ages. The stone is what comes down. You've seen a preface of that in the season as winter ended on the very last day when Biden tripped 3 times. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Okay. Right. How do you take down a giant? You take him down at the ankles. Mm-hmm. That is what's going on right now. It was foreshadowing of what is about to happen to these people and what they are doing. Okay. So the rock of ages is the moment in time where God moves and everything changes. The financial system changes and it will never be the same again. So I don't know the events that are about to play out, but these things happen. And remember, God is a God of time and a God of seasons. We just finished winter. We are now in spring. Spring brings planting for the greatest spiritual harvest in human history coming this fall. Wow. And those people, and that fall is going to be after the 3 months, right? So 4 months. So we've got May, June, July, and August. They are going to be epic, whatever that means. And come fall and come winter, it's going to be spectacular, and it will be nothing like we've seen right now.
Right.
So that's the point. Is just, and so the woo itself is all a part of the Bible.
Right.
It's not separate of the Bible. It's a part of the Bible.
Yeah, we're all together.
The Bible talks about principalities. There's principalities of good, and principalities of darkness. But it's the principalities of darkness that we fight a war against.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jenny on the screen here is asking you, could these cycles be part of the reason the parts of the Bible, like the book of Enoch, are left out of time to prevent us from knowing history? How would you answer that?
Well, that's a perfect example, because Enoch itself described the truth about when Passover is. So when you study it, I've covered that on slide. That is precisely on slide 26, where I talk about Enoch, and it talks precisely why April 26th, based on the Enoch calendar, it's Enoch 73:10 through 16, and it actually talks about how the calculations are to be done correctly. So, so absolutely the Bible they hide parts, they delete parts, but the math never changes.
Right.
In any language it has been written, the math has never changed. You can change slightly twist the interpretation, the dialect, but you cannot. Mathematics do not change. And God is a precise God. When he speaks with precision. His words are precise whenever he speaks. So the point being is that everything God does is mathematical precision. And therefore, nothing's going to change until it's God's time to change it, not our time, not our presidential calendar time. None of those matter to God because he's going to revolve the world on his time. Period. And so I want to kind of listen. We want to kind of get into some of the finishing up some really important things here because I'm doing this for your viewers, Jean-Claude, because I'm hoping some of them begin to see the truth. Because what's coming is great and then horrible. And the horrible, I want to explain so you understand. And so let's go scroll over to page 39, because the wonderful is going to happen is because God's going to move his hand. He's going to give his bride, his church, a window of opportunity. He's going to knock people to their knees so he can rise them up. Okay. But the evil is going to go into hiding, but then they come back. So God's going to give us a window to prepare. But ultimately, the wheat and the tares, the evil and the good, rise together, Jean-Claude. Okay? And as you've seen, no one's been able to stop evil. That's why God's going to intervene right now. Because we've been praying and praying and praying for it. So God is going to intervene. But evil still has a window because he's given evil a window based on revelation, based on his timelines. So evil still has a window. So what's coming? This is what I want people to understand. Okay, so page 40 talks about the 1,000 years of peace, but we don't get to the 1,000 years of peace until you prepare, because famine, pestilence, and those are the good things that are coming. You don't even want to know the bad things that are coming. So we talk about preparation. We talk about, the time of Joseph. So the time of Joseph is going to start. I'm thinking potentially, I think I had in there possibly around the 2024, it could begin where the famine begins.
Right.
But these are the slides that I want your viewers to wake up to. Slides 33 and 34. I put it in there for your viewers because if you haven't prepared and you're not in the right place when these things go down, you're in a world of problems. So let's go through page 43 and just to touch on some of these in page 44. So page 43. So this is Revelation 8, and then later, and then we're going to get into Revelation 16. But the 7 trumpets, page 43. So we're talking green grass, and a third of the trees are burned up. A third of the sea becomes blood. 1/3 of the fish and the sea life is destroyed. A third of the water turns bitter. A third of the sun, moon, and stars do not shine. Locusts wield the beast's military power. 200 million man army, and 1/3 of mankind is killed. Let's go to page 44. Malignant ulcers appear on those who have taken the mark of the beast. The sea turns to blood. All living creatures in the sea die. Drinking water turns to blood, men given blood to drink. Sun becomes extremely hot and scorches men. Antichrist's kingdom is stuck with darkness. Euphrates River dries up. Armies prepare for Armageddon. Worldwide earthquakes. Cities, islands, mountains disappear. 100-pound hailstorms fall from the sky.
Somebody was asking in the chat, what do you see, Bo, as being the mark of the beast?
The mark of the beast will involve it's very specific. It has nothing to do right now with what's happening.
Okay.
I want to be clear about that, because to take the mark of the beast, it's extremely important. It's one specific issue. You must renounce Christ, Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, as Lord and Savior. That is the critical delineation of the mark of the beast. And to do so, remember, and how are they going to get you to do that? Well, the 4 horsemen, right? They start with coronavirus. Then they're going to take violence on the earth. Then the next thing they're going to start off with is the destruction of the monetary system, a financial collapse. All those people in the monetary system who'd never had gold and silver, cryptocurrencies, lose all their money, and so the financially everything shifts. And then you got the 4th seal, which is the gray horse, which is horrible, which is the pestilence. We're talking millions of people are dying from the plague. Okay, not these little numbers we're getting. We're talking millions of people dying from the plague. So, and then they come out with a Okay, well, this is okay. I wanted to bring it, and then you're going to have the aliens tie in with all this, right? Because when God moves his hand, they're not going to be able to explain it. So how do you explain God in the next few months? You can't. So you bring in aliens to blame it on them or tie them into the equation. So expect in the next few months, aliens will be tied in with this equation because it's going to be a distraction from what God just did. So the aliens are going to be directly related to distracting you from the power and the hand of God. So please understand what's coming down the pipeline here is their only excuse for what just happened is to blame it on the aliens or tie it in with the aliens or however they're going to do it. But that's why when the next 4 months, we're going to see some kind of exposure or, something big start to come out with regard to aliens. Why? Because they're going to have to explain what God just did.
Right. Makes sense. Man, it's incredible.
Right. And then back to the fourth seal. So we're talking. So now you've gone basically. So what is their agenda? So the whole plan for them is to destroy you, make you vulnerable because you haven't prepared. They talk about, the pre-trib rapture. So you don't prepare. Right. Okay. That's the Hollywood version of the rapture. Don't do. God's going to take you out of here. No, that's not going to happen. Okay. Right. Otherwise, Noah wouldn't have to build the ark. Okay. Right. So the whole point is all this is directly tied in with Hollywood and into lying and deceiving. So you do not prepare because basically when the mark comes to answer your question, it's going to be directly related to deceiving you that there is no God. The aliens, in some way, shape, or form, were tied in with seeding humanity, with basically cloning the ape man or something, or and creating humanity. And so you don't need God. And so you're going to basically have this massive separation of people who believe with their head, their all-seeing eye, that that the aliens are telling you the truth. But they're nothing but deceivers. They're the fallen ones lying to you about what's happening. But the ones who listen to their heart with discernment will know it's a lie. And that's what's coming upon this earth. And so you're going to have to, you won't care because you want to feed your family. You need food. And Mark is going to basically give you money. They're going to feed you. Like, look what's happening right now. They're going to basically give you money, give you access to money so you can buy food, feed your family. And so because you've done nothing to prepare, so you have no choices. And then to top it off, they're going to take the internet and lock it up. So you need the mark of the beast to log into the internet. So good luck to your cryptos.
Well, somebody was asking here too, and Bill, we're already at the 1 hour mark. I don't know, we're on fire.
I think we're done. I think we're pretty much at the end of the slides here. Okay. So yeah. So finishing with slide 45, arcs of safety. We'll go back to that. But go and ask your question.
Okay, so I was there now. So let me just go back to, you're going to talk about crypto at the next page after that. So let me bring this up here too, because you just mentioned aliens and how potentially this would be a deception here to make people believe that God doesn't exist and that we were all brought by ET. What do you make of this announcement by Pope Francis that he said that he would baptize aliens and that, of course, aliens were all children born under God? How does that?
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Who is the Pope to change the Bible? Who is the Pope to change what's written? If you change anything that's written, you basically are forsaken within the Bible. So to go ahead and make random statements is basically anti-Christ. Okay, well, the Pope is going to end up being the father. He's going to end up tied in with the Antichrist anyways, because remember, the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, right? So you have three entities. In evil times, you're going to have the same exact thing. So you're going to have the Pope, you're going to have the son of perdition, and you're going to have Satan. So you're going to have three entities just like you have right now, and the Pope will be one of them.
Yeah. Okay.
And then so that's the closing up is so the arcs of safety. So the arcs of safety will be domes in the mountains that will be built with luxury. Okay. And then they will be protected by archangels. As crazy as that sounds, well, as crazy as the Bible has been written and all these things that are coming upon the earth, you're going to need some protection. And so those people who've accepted Christ as Lord and Savior are all going to basically separate themselves from the crazy that's going on in the cities, because crazy is going on in the cities. Okay, they'll be separating themselves. You're going to see the people will be building these arcs. they'll be separate zones. And basically that specifically talks about in Isaiah 26, 20 through 21. And I will read that to you. But basically it says, my children, go behind closed doors. I'm just here too. Come my people, and my people. It doesn't mean the people of the earth. My people means God's people. He speaks precisely. Enter your chambers. Those are the arks. And it's not one. They'll be all over the earth. Okay? And shut your doors behind you. Behind you for a little. Shut the doors behind you for a little while, until the fury has passed by. For behold, the Lord is coming out from his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. And the earth will no longer disclose the blood shed on it, and will no more cover its slain. So the arks of safety are precisely and specifically described in Isaiah 26, 20 through 21. So that is, and then finish up probably the most important part of the presentation would be, man cannot overcome God's will, evil cannot overcome God. So all of these things we're seeing happen is basically they're going against God's will, and it doesn't end well, and it will not end well. These next 4 months are going to be biblical. Okay. And so you have questions about cryptos. Go ahead. So let's go to page 47 in cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, a few folks were asking you, how does this tie into cryptos? There's a lot of people into crypto on our show. So what can you give them here in terms of any forecasting or hints of what's coming up here? Are we expecting a big crash and then a move up, or have we already seen the crash and we're into this timeline now where we're going to have a reflection of all of this hyperinflation of our money supply? What say you, Bo?
You just saw what happened this past week. That's pretty much it. It's done with. So go to the slide on page 47. You'll see that precisely the $10,000 mark was breached on Yom Kippur. Okay, that's when the dollar turned down, and they've been fighting it. It dropped down, it came up, dropped down, it came up, but basically it hasn't not gone higher than Yom Kippur of last year, September 28th. Okay. And on that time point is when Bitcoin started rising. They've been fighting tooth and nail to not let gold and silver go up. So basically gold and silver has been on lockdown, but Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are doing absolutely nothing but front running what's about to happen to gold and silver. So those of you who are, have missed the Bitcoin train, again, there's still a lot of huge prices coming. Okay. Right. Bitcoin's going to 200,000 easy this year is what I'm thinking over. My point being is silver hasn't moved yet. Okay. And the point is that those of you who, this is really important, who only have Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are making a huge mistake. Because let me ask you a question. When you find out that what I'm saying is the truth, when you find out that what I'm saying is the truth, and you only have cryptocurrencies and you cannot get your hands on any precious metals, what are you going to do for money when you might be immensely wealthy in digital currencies, but then you get locked out unless you take the mark, and then you have no precious metals to transact with. So you're basically out of luck. So those of you who are 100% in cryptocurrencies are making a very big mistake for yourself and your family. There's nothing wrong with cryptocurrencies right now. They are a part of the financial reset. When the dollar drops, Bitcoin's going to go crazy. Okay, it's going to go vertical. So the alternate coins. We cover all that in my report. We cover like 12 coins in my report that that I think are really wonderful. But the point being is, all of these things are going to go vertical, but at some point you got to unload. You have to know when to take profits. You have to know what to do with it. And, it's not to go buy Lambo. It's to basically protect yourself and your family, because go back and review what's written on slides 43 and 44. That's what's coming. So I hope you people pay attention as to what is written, what has been written for thousands of years, right, and what's coming. Absolutely. So it's really important to understand, but none of these things are not, these slides that we're talking about on page 43 and 44, these are not happening this year, but I would suspect they start to come to pass in the latter part of this decade. So the things that are coming are going to be horrendous. I truly hope the viewers have prepared for what's coming, and you haven't put all your eggs in one basket. And my job is simply to be God's messenger to the world. And I just hope that people come to realize, all the woo-woo people come to realize that woo-woo is in the Bible. It's a part of the whole story. And the biggest woo-woo starts with the giants, the Nephilim. That is the start when Satan and that 1/3 of the angels were cast out of heaven.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a fabulous show. And I want to reiterate what you're saying here about gold and silver. On this show, we always talk about, not putting all your eggs in one basket. So cryptos are nice. There's a lot of profits to be made there too. But do think about getting your hands on some precious physical gold and silver. And when I had John Williams on from Shadow Stats, I asked him for his words of advice at the end of the show as we were talking about this hyperinflation that is upon us now. And he says, yeah, get your hands on some physical gold and silver. And he says, don't sell it. Hold on to it. This is your life. That was his quote. So thank you so much, Bo, for all of this. How can people find your work here? And I know that some people may wish to look at some of this forecast and cycle analysis to maybe perhaps trade the markets. For those individuals, what do you have for them on your website? And how does your subscription work, Bo?
So again, I want to preface this with no one needs my subscription. Okay. If you're just looking to get involved in cryptocurrencies, precious metals, just go buy them. You don't need to spend money to go buy my subscription. It's not necessary. I've given you more information than you'll ever need in this interview. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's number one. Number two is if you're a trader and you want to, you know how to play swings. There's a very important move coming in here into May, and then it's going to be a sharp drop and then another rise. So if you want to play the swings, you can go to my newsletter, get the Bitcoin index. It's $99 for 14 days. You can kind of see, you can go back actually months. You can go see April. You can see everything I've done. It's all in there. And use the code which created for you was BeyondMystic 49, and you get it for $49. So you get it half off. If you like it, if you like what I've done, you can continue. If you don't want to continue, cancel anytime. My point being is that everything I've done is for viewers to see. There's nothing hidden. If you want more information, I have cycle dates into May, into June, into July, and into August. And so the next 4 months, I've got the cycle dates. They're truly, they line up with things that I've been talking about with you on this interview. So right. I'm just telling you, there's a lot of incredible things that are coming, Jean-Claude, and it's supposed to start end of this month. So we wait and we watch. But I want to finish with, we were never made to be a part of the crowd. For those of you, you, Jean-Claude, you right. were never made to be a part of the crowd. Okay. No. The viewers that are here were not made. I would suspect most of the viewers that are listening are not made to be a part of the crowd. Okay. Mm-hmm. Why? Because we were made to stand out. God made us to stand out. Okay. So don't fit in. Stand out. Okay. Don't be scared, because that's the only tool they have to control you. Right. Fear not, for God the Father is in complete control. God created everything. He created the story. If you think I'm wrong, go try to disprove anything that I've said in this report. Go try to disprove Daniel's prophecy of 2,500 years ago and show me another prophet that has a track record like that. Mathematically impossible. Nobody can predict 2,500 years in the future unless it's given to them by God. And if you don't have your insurance, folks, please listen to the words from our quick sponsor here. Hold on.
This episode is sponsored by Miles Franklin Precious Metals Investments. Get your hands on some physical silver today. Beyond Mystic fans can contact Andy for the best available price using the special contact form at beyondmystic.net/silver. Links are in the description box below. And thank you so much, everyone, on our PayPal tip jar who help us produce these shows every night. So thank you so much to Leslie, Suzette, Walter, and Brenda. You guys are amazing. I really appreciate that. You make it possible for me to be out here and to do this work. And I want to thank Bo for all of his time tonight and all of the research that he does. Thank you so much, Bo, for being here. And of course, folks, please do go and subscribe to his YouTube channel and get the jiggy with all of the information as it comes out. You can find him at Gold 2020 Forecast. And Bo, I'll give you the last words. Words of encouragement in terms of
removing fear from the equation. Let's touch that and we'll round out the show on that.
Removing fear from the equation is very simple. Stop listening to what's in your head. Get on your knees and pray. Listen to what you feel in your heart, okay? Because that's where the information is. It's here. You feel it. When the Holy Spirit comes on you, you feel it, okay? So stop being so smart and knowing everything, because that's how he controls you. He scares you in here. When you feel strength in here, you feel his power, and there's nothing to fear. So just know that God's in control. God is in control, and you're about to see the power of God, because my God is not going to let what's going on in this world continue. What started in 2020 is going to end this year, 2021.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much. And folks, please do remember to like, share, and subscribe here on our backup YouTube channel. We're at 31,000 strong and growing, and I appreciate each and every one of you. And again, thank you so much, Bo, for being on, and I hope that you'll come back and provide us with new updates as they unfold for you. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Bo. I'm Jean-Claude at BeyondMystic. Merci et au revoir.
God bless.